I'd say though, if we don't get good cores, we just take the time farming prior to ninjas. Just kill stuff till you have some levels.
There's plenty of safety strats for EXP, for MP. I mean, I've learned a lot through just completing my first reject and taking the sweet time to do what I need to do. It's been nice to prepare accordingly. Oh, we may be starting up. Okay, I think it is true. Believe we're live. Chat, if you can hear me, feel free to give me your best RNG prayer related emotes because we're going to be needing as many of those as we possibly can get today. I'll introduce myself. My name is Elieson. I'm an Ancient Cave speedrunner. Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals Ancient Cave is probably one of the coolest roguelites out there. And I've got with me my good friend and another excellent speedrunner who's got better times than me in some categories, Mike34. He'll be up here on commentary.
Hello, everybody. And don't let Elieson fool you. In this category, Reject, he has a completed run where after 113 attempts, I do not.
It's a little spooky. If you're unfamiliar with what a Reject run is, I'll go over it as we start. That said, we're gonna get a little timer here, and give me a countdown, Mike. We'll start on your go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
All right. So this is the Ancient Cave, the bonus portion of Lufia 2's main game. If you beat the main game twice, you unlock the ability to play this part of the campaign at your leisure. Normally, you can access this part of the game through just generally playing through, and this is about maybe a little over a third of the way through the game. It's a 100 floor roguelike, and you don't get to really bring in anything with you except for 10 potions and a party of your choice. The perk to doing this in gift mode, like we're doing it right now, means I can pick my party completely. Whereas in a regular run, I'd only have a few specific party members to pick. I also picked a capsule monster of my own. This time I brought Darby the Mushroom. You'll be seeing a lot of him. I don't get to control what he does, but I will be using him a lot later on. The object of this is to plow through the 100 floors, or you could really say the 99 floors of this cave, to get to the final floor and fight the bottom floor's boss. You have 3 turns to defeat the boss, and once you do that, then you have a completed run. There are a few little tricks that you're going to be seeing me take advantage of along the way to try to minimize the amount of combat that I get into, or possibly to expedite the results of the combat that I get into. I just picked up a couple of things from blue chests and red chests, and you'll see that enemies only seem to move around when I do. The nature of this game is that for every time that you move, enemies have their own reactionary movement, and you can kind of base yourself and your reliability and your activity around what the enemies do. Mike, if you'd like to...
Trisor that we just saw.
Yeah, feel free to describe what red chest and blue
chest are.
Very
amazing item. Does a ton of damage, however, we can't equip it because we brought incredibly weak party, the rejects, the ones you do not use in any percent. The Ancient Cave is a very challenging run, and we're doing the most challenging form of it in reject percent.
Yeah, the idea of reject percent is that there's an optimal party that you'll bring with you through the Ancient Cave. There's 6 people that you can bring in total, and we're bringing the 3 party members that you normally wouldn't pick. They tend to be more magic-oriented characters, and in this game, being more physically stacked is far more important. That said, we're going to take advantage of the perks that these guys have to offer, primarily their ability to access a wide variety of equipment. Not the heavy gear like axes and spears, but quite a few other things that are going to be pretty important. And also the wide array of magic that my entire party has, meaning anybody on my team can be a healer or a utility prepared to boost agility or whatever it is based on the spells that we find. The blue chest items that you find when you're playing this game allow wonderful replay value because you're able to take out blue chest weaponry or equipment from the cave, like the Camu Jewel and the Fry Sword I found earlier, and re-enter the cave with them. What that means is that you can make adventures into this cave a lot easier through subsequent playthroughs by going in bit by bit, exploring a little bit as you go, coming out using the Providence item to escape safely, and then re-entering with whatever blue chest items you take in with you. Now, if you die, you lose all of those, but ideally, we're not going to die today.
If you remember playing Lufia 2 on your own back in the day, you may have happened upon this ancient cave. It's basically a game within a game, a challenge dungeon. And like Elieson was explaining earlier, those blue chests are designed to kind of give you a boost in the regular game, but also to give you a chance to actually beat the cave by entering and leaving with a Providence item you start finding on floor 21, and doing that over and over until eventually you beat it. We're going to try all this here in under 2 hours today.
Now what we're doing is we're killing a few enemies that you wouldn't normally kill in a standard run. We're trying to get as much XP as possible so that way we can bump up the HP of our team. So that way we don't get shredded by some of the monsters that start appearing in the mid to late teens and 20s. There are enemies in this game that may remind you of the metal slime from the Dragon Quest series. Those are called cores in this game, and we're going to be excited if we see any, and we're also going to be very excited if we get to keep any. They have an 80% chance to run away from battle, but if they stick around and you manage to kill them, which takes a little bit of effort if you're beating them to death, or almost no effort at all if you're casting a spell, you gain a ton of MP in consequence, and they're going to start appearing in the next 6 floors, so keep your eye out for cores in just a little bit, and you'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to the EXP.
The first 10 floors aren't that dangerous, however, they're very important in dictating how the whole run is going to go. For example, there's a 2% chance that these eagles will drop an eagle rock, which gives us an agility boost. Agility is the most important stat in the ancient cave, as it allows you to go before monsters with who's ever using your deadly weapon. We'll get to those in a minute. But also in the first 9 floors, you can find key items you need to beat the jelly, like attack boost items that only drop in the first 9 floors, and hopefully an elemental ring, which will double the attack power of spells that are found 3 through 9.
The idea behind magic in this game is pretty simple. You've got a couple of primary elements, and then you have a holy element. The holy elemental magic can only be used by one particular party member, which we have not brought with us. Unfortunately, though, that means the shadow or dark or instant kill element, which there is access to for us, is accessible by all 4 of our party members. We're going to be taking advantage of that a lot unless we happen across some pretty key items later on, those being those deadly items that Mike referred to. The deadly items include the Deadly Rod, the Deadly Sword, a specific deadly sword due to an English mistranslation, and the Fatal Pick. They have an 80% chance to kill anything that's not undead or a boss, just on contact. Of course, 80% is only as accurate as you hope it would be. The perk to using them is that you kill stuff quickly, but you can't damage undead enemies like zombies, liches, and a couple of other enemies that you'll see later on. The con to them is that they're cursed, and you require another item to take them off called a Curse Lifter. The good thing about having a Curse Lifter, though, is that if you manage to score one, then you can pair it with a Deadly Rod and have a really great weapon to kill the jelly with at the bottom of the cave. We'll cover the boss as we progress through and find some items that'll be more effective against it. But for now, just know that we're spending the first 9 floors looking for important things like elemental rings and such, accessories, and other goodies like helmets and gloves, which don't spawn after floor 10.
You might be wondering why we're in this wonderful room completely full of treasure chests. That's called a party room or a treasure room. It's also completely full of monsters. In the first 10 floors or so, these aren't too big of a problem because the monsters are easy. Later in the run, however, these can spell certain doom for the runner. So right now we're happy. Later on, maybe not so much.
The big thing is, as far as enemies go, the 11, 12, and 13 floors are going to be the first big chunk of EXP that we're going to be getting. We're playing it very safe here, again, by looking for those treasures to try to give us a few extra goodies, the elemental ring access and whatnot. We're also just trying to kill a few monsters to get about 6 or 7 levels, because the way enemy spawns and chest contents work in this game is that everything's fixed within a range. We know what can appear where, but we don't know what's actually going to appear where. For instance, there's a chance that this phaser shield could never have appeared. The items like X Magic, which are MP recovery items, potions, shields, anything really. We know what floors they'll appear on in terms of a range, and as you get further into the cave, the objects have a smaller chance to appear, depending on what they are. Spells can appear on any floor. Blue chests can appear on any floor, and the items of a blue chest can be anything at any time. But the red chests, their pool increases from floors 1 through 9, and then again from floors 10 through 60. So there's a series of items that we're going to be looking for eventually, and until we get there, we're just going to have to pick up what we can.
That, by the way, is not a treasure chest. It looks like a treasure chest. It sits in one place like a treasure chest, but it is not.
Yeah, but if you're familiar with games that have mimic-type enemies that just appear to be, you know, one thing, but they're really a hostile enemy, that's exactly what we're looking at here. The butterflies here, or the moths, are a little bit annoying. They're pretty fast. They can put you to sleep, but they're not too threatening. But the chests, they come in big groups. Sometimes they can come in groups of 4. They're going to be one of our first chances at demonstrating a side attack or back attack logic that this game offers. It'll say got in first if we manage to do a effective attempt at a back attack. This gives you an entire turn of combat before an enemy can act or react to you. The thing is, only certain enemies have that ability. For instance, jelly enemies don't have a front or a back, so you can't get a back attack on them. There are some very threatening enemies later on in the cave that you cannot get a back attack against, and what you want to do with those is just throw the avoid combat with them entirely. We just found a snow sword. As we described earlier, the fry sword that we picked up, a holy sword, can't be used by anybody on our team. The snow sword is for ladies only, and we happen to have both of them with us. So we're very happy for that. The snow sword gives bulk, and for the girls who just tend to be a little bit squishier, we want all the bulk we can get for them.
Not only is it a viable jelly item, and we're trying to allocate a combination of survival items and items we can fight the jelly with. Not only offensively is it a good jelly item, but also provides, like Ellie was saying, I believe it's a 50 defense boost, which is very useful when we're trying to survive and IP grind towards the end of this dungeon.
You probably haven't really noticed it yet, but we do have a couple of things to look out for. One, there's stairs that we have to find on each and every floor. There's only so much of a chance that you're going to find the stairs. There have been instances where the stairs do not spawn, so we are praying that the 0.02% chance of a stair glitch or a void floor doesn't happen. That said, enemies can spawn anywhere on the floor, including on top of stairs, and there is a chance that, like we saw with that red mimic earlier, there's an enemy that is immobile that may spawn on top of the stairs that we have to fight to get through. And some of those enemies can be extremely difficult to pass through, and we're going to try our best to avoid combat with them at all.
On floors 29 through 31, we can encounter the dreaded blue mimic. Maybe the most dangerous run ender in the entire cave. And they're like the mimics we just saw, however, they never move. And they're incredibly overpowered at this level, and can wipe your whole party out before you have a chance to even move. To answer a question in chat, by the way, Fake Ring's IP does give an agi boost, yes.
It's funny enough, the skills in this game, if you've ever played a game like Phantasy Star, you may have heard of spells that don't quite make sense for what they are. For instance, Watt is the ice spell, and Foy is the fire spell. In this game, Trick is the spell that boosts your attack power, and Fake is the spell that boosts your agility. The Fake Ring doubles the potency of the spell Fake, however, the ring itself actually boosts your attack power. Just an odd quirk of the spell itself.
We're on floor 11 now, which is where the cores that Ellie was talking about earlier can start spawning. They look like these little squares that try to run away from you. And feel free, by the way, if you have any good core puns to make them, we encourage those here.
Of course, we love core puns.
The channel points for Elieson are called currency. Get you started.
So we described that the cores are important. Not only is there a rare chance that we'll find them, of the 4 types of cores, each core type only appear on batches of 3 floors within a particular range. We've got one here. There is no guarantee that this one's going to stick around, but we're going to prepare for it anyway, just in case we get lucky. By equipping our strongest gear.
Run away at 75% chance, so we're hoping for 4 of them, and we're hoping at least 1 stays. We have 4, and let's see how this goes. That went poorly. You are correct, Eve. I did miss that opportunity.
Excellent. Now, the Providence appears from floor 20 onward, so it is entirely possible that if there is a stair glitch where the stairs just don't appear, then we're just going to have to Providence out and re-enter the cave, taking our blue chest items with us, but effectively starting over from scratch otherwise.
No, we really do want some cores because this party is extremely not tanky, and the cores give us a lot of survivability.
There are backups that we have for gaining EXP. Now, a core is worth as much as, say, 8 or 9 of these skeletons, so all we have to do is just wallop a whole handful of them, and we'll be caught up in no time. Eventually, enemies are going to get to the point where they're too difficult for us to strategically attack in convenient ways to prevent us from getting ourselves beat up in significant ways, so that's why we're trying to capitalize on what we can and make sure that we don't get ourselves in a situation where we're stuck without EXP. An optimal run will have you, say, fight 2 of them and be level 11, and you can just avoid combat with literally every other enemy that the cave has to offer, these early floors at least. That said, you can see all the combat that I've participated in has only brought me to level 7. So it just goes to show how important those are. 1 core will bring your entire party to level 9, for instance, and that is, well, pretty dang useful. Mike, we picked up a fatal pick earlier. Do you want to talk about what that is going to be important for?
Hopefully nothing, because we want a deadly rod. There are multiple deadlies in this game, and as you were saying earlier, they have an 80% chance to kill any non-undead in 1 strike. However, the deadly rod is superior to the fatal pick, which are both 80% deadlies, in that its IP attack can do 1/8 of the total damage on an enemy, and the jelly at the end of this cave has 9,980 hit points, so 1/8 is going to be on average around 1,400 damage. It has no IP ability, and once you equip it, you can't unequip it without a curse lifter. So we're really hoping for a deadly rod, but we can use that fatal pick in extreme situations where it's do or die, and then maybe try to find an alternative on the jelly.
Fortunately, as chests contents go, you can see we've picked up several of the same item. You can pick up multiple of the same weapon, multiple of the same armor. It can be inconvenient because of how the chest loads, or the item loading logic is. Floor's contents for a chest can possibly include the same thing twice for the same floor, and that includes magic spells. Unfortunately, if you find the same magic spell twice, you don't get any perk out of it, so it's effectively just picking up an extra piece of paper that means nothing.
Just found Trick, and that is an essential jelly item, as it gives you a 20% attack boost and can be cast twice for, I believe, effectively 30% damage increase. The one challenge to the reject run is that it's very difficult, not only to get to the jelly, but then to have what you need to kill it. So trick is one of those puzzle pieces we're going to need to get this kill.
Yep, and ideally what we're going to be taking advantage of is some high power weaponry coupled with a couple of those deadly weapons or some of those fractional based damaging attack moves to maximize the amount of damage we can do early on with the fractionals, because they base themselves and their damage off of the max HP of the particular foe. And then paired that with a finisher that's going to just deal a lot of damage to the foe after it's been killed or been weakened, to make it so that way our big moves are blown first and we're dealing, say, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 damage with a couple of significant moves, then another handful of increments of 700 to 900 over the course of a turn. Not counting what our pet will do. Of course, we can't quite control what our pet will do, but those are going to be effective tools nonetheless to take advantage of.
You might be wondering why slashing a bush and stepping where it was resulted in a blinding flash. That there would be a healing tile, which are randomly thrown about the cave, like most things are randomly in the cave, and it heals you all the way, 100%. So that can be a big boon when you don't have any heal spells, which I don't believe we have a heal spell yet, do we, Elieson?
We don't. There are 3 healing spells, and there are 2 recovery or revival spells. The revival spells can also be used for healing. That said, it's inconvenient when you don't have any. Also, we just picked up
we found an iris item.
Yes, iris items are a unique collectible that this game, or at least this particular mode of the game, offers. There are 9 collectible iris treasures, plus 1 that you get for defeating the final boss of the cave. The items themselves cannot be equipped. They can be deposited into a storage bank at the very bottom of the bar in which you pick up your party members on at the beginning of the game. They don't do anything. Like I said, they're just, congratulatory items. They cannot be equipped. Collecting all of them doesn't do anything except give a message that just says, "Congratulations, you've collected them all." It's kind of like completing the Pokédex, only you don't get to print off your completed Pokédex certificate.
There are people that play the ancient cave and play what they call iris percent, whereby you try to collect them all. I think the world record is around 12 hours.
You're seeing there's some enemies around here that behave in strange ways. We're just getting to the point now where teleporting enemies will start to appear, and depending on where they are, some of them will teleport in one way based on how far away you are. Others will teleport in another way based on how close you are to them. There are a third type, which just teleport whenever the heck they want, and those are the ones that we're really looking out for, because right here, this is where they happen to appear.
We found a blue chest item there that is just about as good as an iris, the title jewel. Later, perhaps we'll feed our capsule with that to get it to a higher form. We're gonna get by these Gorums here by trying to sideswipe them and get a 50% chance of a surprise attack on them, and then doing it again, and hopefully the pumpkin will give us a free pass to those stairs.
We're getting extremely unlucky. These are 50-50s to get a bypass through these enemies without having them do an attack on me. And because we're not that high level right now, due to just, again, bad luck, we are stuck in a situation where we just don't have the HP recovery to get through without, taking a pretty big beating along the way.
Nor did we get any cores, so we're very vulnerable. Right now is a dangerous part of the run.
Now, fortunately, we do have a little bit of a gap, but not too long of a gap before the next series of cores appears, and that's kind of like our next milestone. Blue cores appear on floors 30 32, 33, and 34, and we're going to be praying for them to stick around. Where red cores were pretty important. They gave a good 2,000 points of EXP, which is, you know, a pile of levels early on, but, you know, not that much otherwise. The blue cores will give a huge amount of EXP. They give as much as 5 red cores do. So we're praying that if we do get the opportunity to find cores, that the blues will stick around and the reds will, if any accompany them, decide to just leave us alone.
Now, you've seen that where we could have gone down the stairs a few times. We're not doing that. We're searching for treasures, hoping to get some offense and some healing here so that we can survive deeper into the cave.
Yeah, unfortunately, this run hasn't started off very well. We've been very unfortunate. We haven't found any healing or sustainability. We haven't found very many good weapons. We have found barely any armor. We found the fake ring, which only appears for 3 floors due to a sort of glitch in the game's code. But the fake ring's not really going to do anything for us. And the spells that we have found, while neat, aren't going to be of great use for the time being, simply because compared to everything else that we could be using right now, there just isn't too much for us to utilize out of the spells we've got. Now, one such spell that we did find was Destroy, which is a spell that has a 50% chance to kill its target. Obviously, we'd prefer to take advantage of the 80% chance offered by the Deadlies, even though those are cursed weapons, just because it's far more reliable. But we may end up having to rely on those Destroy spells just to get a secured kill here or there, because we just need whatever EXP that we can get.
What is Maxim's HP looking like?
It's not looking that great, but...
I'm sorry, his IP.
His IP? Maxim has full IP. In fact, everyone has a pretty good chunk of IP. You want to talk about what IP is good for?
Yes, and I'm also wondering if you're thinking about what I'm thinking about with some certain fish that are coming up with that 100% IP. Draw some cool strats. Anyway, IP
not too
are
excited about that.
basically anger points. IP are basically anger points, and this B, by the way, can be fatally dangerous. He moves in a movement pattern of 0, 1, 2, 1, 0. So we're gonna try to sneak by him, get him in that lower left corner. These guys also dangerous. Ooh, that incendiary, that's brutal. Might be doing 2 attempts here.
Yep. That is unfortunate. Unfortunately, we just did a wipe. That is okay, though. We don't get to take out the snow sword, the sizzle sword, and the other cool stuff that we just found. But we still got time to do some pretty cool stuff.
And in warm-up, Elieson almost got a world record in this. He is at 130-something right before the jelly. So this is still doable. And hopefully we get a little better start than last time. Not having any heals or cores is just adding to this challenge run even more.
Now we lost the items related to the blue chest, the snow sword, the sizzle sword, the Camu jewel, which would have been kind of nice, but we're not sacrificing that much. If we can get ourselves a good couple of things here early on, it can let us catch up on time big time. Ideally, we're going to hope for one of those deadlies. If we have a heal spell, it will really improve our chances of getting through those tight hallways where fights are just forced. And if we get even 1 core, then we'll be ahead of our EXP levels from earlier by a pretty significant amount.
Right, we were at level 8 in this previous run. 1 core alone gets you to level 9, and you want 2 to 3 on average in a reject run.
Now, if you're concerned about time, most of the time spent in this run, in particular the reject category, comes from just opening stuff, looking for a jelly kill. We do have a way to defeat the jelly without killing it. We'll get into that a little bit later. Chat, if you feel like thinking in your heads, what could I possibly mean by killing it without killing it? All I need to know is that if we get there quickly and we have some magic, that's all we really need. In fact, we can even walk up to the jelly with a party that's kind of beaten up already and take advantage of just a little bit of an exploit that the game has in order to count it as a win. In official category timeline, we don't actually allow that to be considered a completion, but in terms of the main game, it does count as a kill, and you're rewarded with the spoils of the ancient cave, as it were, even if you take advantage of this exploit. We're still going to open in these early floors because finding a ring or something neat would be pretty neat.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Let's say we're still going to be opening in these early floors because we do have a handful of things that we would like to get our hands on. In particular, a few weapons, so that way we can kill a few safety enemies, again, like those eagles, which are pretty safe and give us, after killing 2, handful of levels. Hopefully we could find a spell or 2, which, again, those spells will spawn equally on all floors. And finally, if we explore a little bit and find the blue chest, that can really set us up to be ahead of the pace.
So, IP, Akari points are, whenever you get hit, it builds up a little bar, and that bar allows you to use special attacks or defensive skills. And those IP attacks are essential to beat the jelly.
The IP attacks exist or can exist on pretty much anything that you can equip. Mostly weapons are the ones that you're thinking about, although there are some accessory IP abilities that are really important. Additionally, there are IP abilities that can either deal damage, recover your HP, recover your MP, and where Mike had described earlier that it's important to take advantage of the ability to get recovery from those recovery pads that we walk on the floor after chopping a couple of bushes down. The heal pads that we find can only recover HP, not our magic power. So we will eventually be stuck needing items or special abilities to recover our MP, and we don't want to have to be stuck high and dry without MP to cast our healing spells, which is why we're hoping for a couple of specific items to get us our MP back, or a spell that can allow us to absorb MP from enemies. Time-consuming spell, but still important nonetheless.
So one thing we haven't touched on yet is the treasure generation, and certain chests don't start certain items don't start dropping until certain floors. For example, on floor 5, we can start finding the deadly rod, which is one of the most crucial items to this run. That's the deadly that also has the IP attack that you can use 3 times, once per round. The 3 rounds you get to fight the jelly to do 1/8 of its damage each time. And yes, we died to fire chickens, but the real killer in that room were the bees. He's trying to count the bee steps, get them in the lower left corner, and get by them. And the bees distracted enough for the fire chickens to cook us.
The way this game works is that you can always try to prepare yourself as much as possible for any chunk of cave stretch that you're about to try to plow through. You never really do have enough to get through the cave safely and securely. All you can do is boost your chances by opening chests and hoping that whatever you find inside of them is going to be useful. Early on, there's a few things that just matter a lot more than others, primarily for the sustainability. And then later on, you want to find the jelly killing weapons that allow you to deal the maximum amount of damage after you found your sustainability and your deadlies in order to allow you to deal with the general combat that you hope not to deal with, but inevitably have to.
So there are in the ballpark of about 55 different spells that you can find on any floor. And every time you find a spell, it's out of the pool of the spells you can find next time. And there are 5 healing spells. So we're hoping to get one of those 5 healing spells early, preferably 2 of those 5, which are also revive healing spells. Those are the ticket, and it's Rally and Valor are their names. The game brings you back to life too, by the way, a one-time use.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, we're gonna have to fight this mimic now. They're level 3, so they can't one-shot us, but they still are dangerous, and we don't have Well, we just won the 50-50. That was crucial. I do see we have a boomerang. I don't know that we have any attack spells yet, just shield. The way you can tell a mimic from a treasure is they're slightly off color. They're kind of light orange to red. I think there's some more in this chest. There's Darby with a clutch trance maker. Darby's a great capsule monster. He has 4 forms we'll be seeing, and in form 1, he uses trance maker, which confuses the enemies and makes them kill themselves for you. It's a nice thing.
It's pretty rare that the enemies will actually attack themselves, but it's always hilarious when that actually happens. Now, one perk to what we just saw out of Trance Maker is not only that the enemies will take an opportunity to attack themselves, if they have special abilities that they could use, the ability for them to use those special abilities is effectively canceled. They can only use either a regular...
Okay. I was going to have chat try to guess which treasure was the right one, but you kind of answered the question.
Oh yeah, no, we'll be more interested if we see the blue ones that are mixed up, because those can be a fatal mistake.
Alright, we found our first Zap spell. We don't have anyone that can cast Zap, the most powerful spell in the game. Which means once you find it, it doesn't get taken out of the pool. It's still in there, so you can find Zap multiple times, or Fry.
Now right here we just found Deadly Sword. The Deadly Sword is, again, the equivalent of that 80% kill item that we were looking for. We don't really want the sword itself because it's not very good. The person that uses it is only Maxim, or ourself, our little redhead here, and he is not that fast, so a lot of enemies will outspeed him before he gets to take advantage of using the instant killing sword. Ideally, we'd find a Deadly Rod so that way you can give it to one of our girls, and then because of how fast they are, in particular Tia, the one with purple hair, we're able to get those kills off earlier, and therefore boost our reliability of success by that much more.
Okay, bless RNG chat. We have another chance at cores. We need them.
That was a one-shot.
So good news and bad news. We got the cores. That was really good. However, they destroyed Lexus, as you do. It's kind of a squishy character, and he's in the front row thinking.
Now, the unfortunate thing is
that was really good.
That is the maximum amount of damage that could have been done to an armorless Lexus. So that was just inconvenient for him. You see now how much damage we're taking. Darby, our little mushroom pet, starts off with 5 HP. Now he's totally fine.
If you're wondering what Darby is, Lufia 2 has its own version of kind of like little Pokemon. And they do various skills, and you can feed them and power them up to extra levels. Darby, in many ways, is the best capsule monster, even though he's not using any percent because he's not as fast as the Sully capsule monster. He still is overall better in that his third form, he has a deadly attack that kills at 90% chance and has the highest Form 4 average damage against the jelly. And as you've seen, Form 1 can use Trance Maker, which is boss.
So right now we're already a higher level than we were before. We don't have too much in our pockets yet. We do have a magic spell called Gale, which is okay. It's the tier 1 ice spell, and there's 3 tiers for all of our magic. Outside of Holy, which we don't have access to. So we're trying to take advantage of finding more spells as we can.
I approve chat, by the way, of these pun cores. They're very good.
Now, the enemy movement, which you've seen, you've probably noticed that some enemies have different types of tracking and transportation. Some will move around in circles, like that little mushroom. Some will move in a way that's kind of running away from you. Some will slowly approach you. Some will just zip all around wherever they feel like going. We can manipulate enemy movement in such a way based on how we run around, and also we have a sword, which if we mash the B button, it swipes. That will allow us to force enemies to act as though if they had a movement advancement process that it would trigger. Certain enemies, you can draw them closer and closer to you. You can make them move around from position to better your chances of getting around them. There is a little trick that you can take advantage of with the sword swipes that allows you to move enemies without actually having to move yourself if they're a stationary enemy that requires movement to trigger. You want to, you'll see that when we find a couple of red scorpions in a little while. I'll try to demonstrate that because it's a pretty easy trick to show, but it's extremely important in getting through tight hallways that have multiple enemies in them, or complicated rooms that just have some nasty dudes in them that you just don't want to have to worry about fighting.
A couple of floors back, we found the spell Courage, which is generally not that good. However, in reject percent, it's a great spell because it increases everyone's defense. And later on, we're going to be trying to get IP for everybody to beat the jelly. And using Courage really ups your survivability and ability to do that against certain monsters.
Eventually, it's going to get to the point where using Courage isn't going to help us because the enemies will have such high damage output or instant kill output that we're just not going to be able to do anything about it. But there are certain situations where we'll find uses of it. Hopefully, I'll be able to demonstrate one or two of these to you later on. Now, we're about to enter the 20th floor again. These scorpions, though, that we're seeing here, I'm actually going to take advantage of for just a moment and see if we can get a little bit of a free EXP off of them to catch Lexus up.
Ooh, the Antari's glitch, showing off the flashy strats. Boom.
So what we did here, we're able to manipulate the enemies that react based on how you move by swiping our sword and holding a direction and holding the R trigger, which keeps us standing still in order to fake movement. By faking that movement, we're able to move enemies that normally can't move unless you're moving, and therefore put them where we want them to go. Now, when enemies are standing next to things like a chest or a bush, they can't turn into the direction of that particular chest or bush, and therefore we're able to maximize a trick to getting a secured back attack on them any chance we can.
Sorry about your ears, I was applauding. Found an iris helmet.
We don't applaud for the iris items. You know that,
Additionally,
Mike.
we found a deadly rod too. Okay, that was a crucial find. We're gonna want a heal now, and we have 2 building blocks of survival.
Yeah, so the deadly rod that we found, again, this is the good one. We do have a fatal pick, which we can also equip, although that's not necessarily the good one, because when we get the curse lifter to take it off, as a reminder, it gives you no benefit to attacking the jelly at the very end of the cave, whereas the deadly rod gives you a really, really good one. So we're glad we got the deadly rod. If we don't find the curse lifter, we're still able to take advantage of a couple of options for our person that's using the deadly rod to make sure that she can still damage the jelly if she needs to. Or if we end up needing to take advantage of the exploit that I was talking about, the kill without killing, we can actually utilize that deadly rod in order to encourage a pretty swift kill for the backup plan, as it were.
So now that you've heard us talk a bit about the items in the game, let me give you a quick list of what we're looking for on these floors. What we still need, I believe, we don't have Trick, correct, Elieson?
Correct. That was from last run.
Right. So we need Trick, an attack buff spell. We need a Curse Lifter, at least one, for our Deadly Rod. We do have a Fatal Pick, so if we have 2 Curse Lifters, we could be rocking double Deadlies. We want a heal spell. We would like a tier 3, the most powerful level of magic. Ideally Thunder, but Ice Valk is good. As is Dragon, and to a lesser extent, Firebird.
Yeah, the way elemental magic is handled is there is a distinct tier of value, and holy magic, which we don't have access to, is traditionally the strongest thing that we would like to have access to. The optimal party in this cave does have access to that, and while that party has 2 people who can't use magic, they're far tankier and therefore able to deal with the threats that this cave has to offer by being probably as tanky as both of the girls put together plus a third. After that, the Thunder spell is the best spell available, and fortunately everybody who can cast magic can utilize that one, as well as the Ice and Water magic. For whatever reason, our redheaded hero here can't cast Fire magic, which is something that you don't normally see. We found Rally. Mike, you want to talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, Rally is exquisite. It's really my favorite spell. I'm really happy right now. So now Elieson's doing a good job getting surprise attacked by these guys, and hopefully they kill somebody, and we can see, oh, there we go, good. Now we can use Rally, and it'll bring him back to life for 10 MP and heal 100 HP. So very cheap at low levels to cast, not so efficient at higher levels, but we can bring people back to life excessively now.
There is another spell called Valor, which will revive a party member to complete HP. It can also revive multiple party members, and for what it's worth, the spells can be used for attack as well.
Oh, this is unfortunate.
This is really bad.
Very unfortunate. Oh no.
This may be another...
Oh, we had to engage them. Do we have a smoke ball? We do. Okay, okay. That was close. These guys would have ended our run without that smoke ball. Yeah, that's better than the alternative. And we got the 50-50. We're good. This is nerve-wracking, but we survived.
Yeah, the little hallways like that in this game are more challenging to tackle your way through than most of the other parts you're going to usually find your way through. We're getting some bad luck here with some enemy placement. We don't want to ever spawn in these hallways. We don't have to deal with the enemies that are in these hallways, but it looks like we're stuck with it.
So what are we going to do? Fight the lions and try to take the 50-50 on the leeches?
We don't have much of a choice otherwise.
Yep. Okay, the deadly hit, that was crucial. These guys have a scratch attack that can wipe the whole party, but he didn't use it.
Now the lions are scary.
He gave us a lion paying for his troubles. That's an agility booster and attack tower booster. We're not out of the woods yet, though. This other little tiny innocent looking shell guy could have ammonites in it. Are extremely fast and can use a tentacle skill and wipe out our party. Elieson's going to try to get a 50-50 on it. They only move on odd intervals, so if he can get it facing up or down, he can try to sneak by it on an even interval and not on an even step interval and make sure that it doesn't move and face him. Get a surprise attack on us. First, we have to get by these undead characters. This, believe it or not, is the easy part. Darby's Transmaker will be no use to us here. He's undead and cannot be confused.
It's possible that we may not have to worry too much about a reset here. I'll need to take a look at Tia's agility. If she does happen to outspeed the enemies that I'm afraid that we may have to fight after this level up, and the boost from that Lion Fang, then we may not have too much to worry about. Looks like I'm wrong here in this case, so it's going to be a little bit of a struggle.
We're going to try to sneak by, I believe. We'll see how Ellie plays it.
We can sort of take advantage of movement by being very careful here. We don't want to see a tentacle attack. We got lucky and we didn't.
That was good.
These
physical attacks.
These enemies can come in groups of 3. If they all use their tentacle attack, then that is just 9 too many tickles, and we end up dying just because we don't have the ability to survive an attack that hits everybody for defense piercing damage. Ah, here we go.
It's a blue chest, Ellie.
No, that's not a blue chest, Mike. Don't try to trick me.
It's blue. It's clearly not the regular color of a chest.
Don't lie to the audience, Mike. That is a blue mimic, you silly goose.
That's a blue chest that eats you. It's not the kind you open, it's the kind that open you. And we hope that the stairs are not sitting under that blue chest.
Yes, if you happen to be around...
and win.
If you were around earlier, you may remember that we did find a red mimic that was on top of a chest. It wasn't too threatening because we're able to lure them off and they'll chase you. I do like how Mikan's box responded because we were just kind of worrying about boxes here. The blue mimics themselves, they don't move. So if you're stuck in a situation where you have to fight them because they're parked on top of the stairs, that is typically a run ender because they can come in a set of 4. Do another one of those attack everybody things and pretty much just shred your entire party.
So they spawn on floors 29 through 31, which makes these incredibly dangerous floors. Even if they don't block your, even if the stairs aren't under them, they could be in front of a door. You could have to walk by them. They can come up to groups of 4, and with a reject party, if they use their frenzy attack, that basically wipes you out. See the stairs, and that they are very pleasant sight right now.
Now, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Once we pass floor 31 here, then we're going to be finding ourselves into the blue core floors. And the blue cores, again, as we described earlier, are worth a whole lot of EXP, as much as 5 cores. Now, if the stairs are through this door up here, we're in some trouble. But we're going to try to look around and see if we can get around it without having to explore through there. Tearsill with the blue mimic emote from that spare Zac. Yes, appropriate. Ah, looks like we're going to be able to get out of this mess alive.
Okay, we are fortunate. You guys might see us die twice tonight, but not yet.
Now, one thing you'll notice, and I just did it right there, I entered the stairs from the bottom. There's a reason that we do this. One, enemies, when they load in, if they have a direction that they can face, they're always facing downward. If you want to try to take advantage of a surprise attack on enemies, you're going to want to do everything you can to make sure that you don't fight them by getting surprise attacked. If you face up when you run into a room, then it guarantees that you're not going to be stuck in a situation where you gotta tackle them with a surprise attack in your face. Uh-oh.
Ugh, these guys are trolling us. That's 2 misses in a row. Ooh, and Incendiary. Rough. So, is he faster?
I'm not sure. Son of a gun.
Geez. Okay, so the bad thing about 80% deadlies is 20% of the time they miss. So 2 misses and you are often wiped. And the one thing about the cave is you can die without being able to do anything many times, like we talked about with the blue cores with Archfiends later, or with the multiple misses. That's why we have these wonderful emotes you're seeing in chat, the miss and the JFC squealers.
Now you'll see what I just did. I ran back to the town and I swapped out my party members. It's to the point now where I want to give you guys something to look at that's more than the first 20 floors of this cave. So I've swapped out my reject party members. I'm taking in some friends. If we make our way down to the jelly, it's going to be pretty amazing. But what I want to do is get far. So I'm going to showcase the better party members here in this case, and we're going to identify exactly why they're better, turn this into a learning experience, and make this into a run that could actually turn into a finished run. With as little time as we have left, it is conceivable that with an any percent party, I could make this work out. Now, we've got Artie with us, who is...
Zap and Candy.
Yep, we can use it. We have Strong. This is the heal spell that we were hoping for. This is the basic tier 1 heal spell, and it is extremely useful because it's super cheap, but it scales really well. You notice that our party members here have a lot more HP, so they're able to tank hits pretty well. Runs in under an hour have happened. Mike, the commentary gent here, happens to have done one of these runs.
And we're set up really well to have a fast run with a quick zap and heal spell. Elieson almost has one of the only, very close to having one of the only sub 1 hour runs without the any percent party.
Now, the perk to taking these people, one, we swapped out our 2 girls for Decker and for Guy. They're tanky individuals. They can take a hit, obviously. You saw them get punched by eagles 3 times, and they're just kind of shrugging it off and saying ouch, but that's no big deal. We also swapped in Artie, who is the fastest character in the game. He is an elf, which notoriously in SNES RPGs means that they're fast, they're accurate, and they have high magical properties. This is no mistake. Artie is a magical prodigy. He is able to use holy magic, and he's the only one who can. He's got the second highest MP stat under the contents of whatever an any percent run would include. And he has access to a couple of weapon types which most other people can't use, including bows. Bows aren't necessarily great, but they do offer up some interesting options for dealing with certain enemy types that we'll be seeing way later in the run. The Decker and Guy combination that we have include, just like I said earlier, 2 very tanky individuals. It does take a lot to take them down, and as you see, Decker did get beaten up here, but we still are fine. Decker, he has access to the Decker Blade, which is the single most important item in defeating the jelly and running through this cave to complete the end mission of defeating the jelly at the end. Guy is pretty much Decker Light. He doesn't have the abilities that Decker has in terms of using the Decker Blade, but he does have access to some pretty other effective heavy weaponry, which does let us get a lot of damage done. We also enjoy having sponges for beefcakes because, again, how the damage is calculated in this game, it primarily encourages having more HP than it does having defense, or especially magic defense. Now, this combination...
Decker is dead, but we have multiple miracles. Earlier I mentioned that a regain will bring someone back to life. A miracle will bring someone back to life with full HP. We have 2 miracles and now 1 regain. With the spell Strong, which is the most efficient, cheapest healing spell, it only takes 3 MP. So we're set up pretty good for survival. We're looking for some offense now.
We just found the mini shield, which will help us boost our offense later on. The mini shield itself is not very exciting. Only a couple of people can use it. Our girls can use it, but we don't have the girls, and Artie can use it. The item has the IP ability, which is extremely valuable, called Battle Lust, which increases the attack power of a target by 40%, which is really, really helpful for the finishing the jelly part of this cave, where you want to just deal a lot of damage and quickly.
You can use it twice, effectively raising the damage of a character's finishing move to 60%.
Now we're gonna see if we can find. Are you wondering
what a Sir Custom 11 is?
Oh yeah, Sir Custom 11. If anybody in chat happens to know, feel free to share, because that's an unusual piece of knowledge. Oh, shucks, Peekaboo, you got a point. We should probably update that to change the fact that this was a reject percent run and no longer is.
So reject percent run becomes any percent run.
A rejected reject run. Yes, I like that.
Now, give some salutes out to Elieson here. Not many people have the guts to do a reject percent on a marathon. I certainly don't. I've never finished one. And that's 119 runs, so he did a great job. And now hopefully we have a good any percent run to display for you. See, someone has the correct answer. Is a guitar, Sir Custom 11.
For this stage of the cave, the guitar is actually surprisingly powerful. I'm not really sure why, but we're going to utilize it. We're going to beat up some blocks with it, hopefully.
Oh, good, you got these guys cornered, but they ran away.
Thank you. As a dad, I appreciate all these puns. One thing you'll notice is that the way I was strategizing and inputting my commands for the attack, I was trying to make everybody attack the enemies that were in the front row. Depending on where your row placement is and where the enemy's row placement is, you can have up to 12.5% or 1/8% worth of additional damage dealt to your enemies if they're in the front row, and then another 12.5% if they are in the front row. So we're going to try to take advantage of row mechanics to make our tanks more tanky in case of emergency, or just deal more damage against the jelly if we get to the end successfully here by just, proper unit placement. Now, we haven't found any cores yet.
Taking a little bit of EXP right here. Just in case, we're at the last core floor right after this, so getting some levels now.
Now we just found a tier 2 ice spell there, Blizzard. Blizzard is going to be an extremely useful spell for a lot of what this cave will offer, especially about halfway through. There's a couple of enemies that are incredibly weak to ice, and we want to take advantage of killing them. We can do that with ice, and we can do that with the deadly if we can find those, and it gives us a pretty good reward in the term of a farmable item. There aren't too many farmable items in this cave that we're going to be going for, but we do hope that we can get some. In particular, those include a accessory that allows us to double our damage output, and ideally a damage item that lets us triple our damage output by spending some of those Ikari or IP points, that little yellow gauge that you've seen filling up whenever we get beaten up.
We're level 15. Ooh, there's another heal spell. We're on floor 15, which is when the vaunted Decker Blade starts dropping. What you just witnessed before, the only reject runs I've ever seen where you don't find the Decker Blade. They seem to come often when you can't use them. Hopefully we find one now, though.
Yep, and I will share that my last reject run that I did in a marathon, I found 3 of the key weapons that I couldn't equip, which I thought was pretty convenient. Yeah, unfortunately, Arthontos, when I passed my first death earlier on, that did mean that I did lose the Fry Sword. I would have loved to have that right now, but unfortunately we couldn't take it with us even through death. Now, in terms of being able to run away from enemies, which is very important, having Artie with us means that we have, again, a very fast person to utilize. Enemy runaway mechanics in this game kind of do a strange formula where it takes the fastest person and the slowest person. It sort of averages their agility together, and then it checks it against each of the enemies' agilities one by one to see if they get a turn to act before you can run. Because we have Artie the fastest guy and Decker the slowest guy, we end up getting a pretty wide average. So we don't always know what we're going to get in terms of being able to run away successfully. But the odds of running away are whereas a bit more wild, also a little bit more consistent in that if we have one of our slower people dead, it leaves our fast person alive, and then we can just use his speed to run away, since dead people agility are not taken into effect when it comes to trying to figure out if you can run away from something or not.
So now the item composition that we're looking for is a little different. We still want a deadly rod. We did just find a deadly sword. And unlike in reject percent, if we find a curse lifter, that deadly sword becomes viable. And there are actually 2 deadly swords in the ancient cave. One is a deadly that works as we want it to. The other is completely useless. It's a cursed item that not only doesn't kill anything, but you can't take off. Those start dropping at floor 20, so we know that the one we have is good. That sandstorm attack is terrible, by the way. At level 4, does solo damage to everybody. We have quite a few revive items, but we're going to look to get some XP as soon as possible.
Yeah, the hard
we do
thing
have the zap spell.
The hard thing is finding something safe to kill. Zap is an extremely expensive spell too, and we have to try to find ways to balance our MP so we don't run out when we need to be able to heal. Now, funnily enough, our level 4 durability right now is slightly above where we were when we had the full team of rejects earlier, which is kind of entertaining if you think about how squishy the others tend to be.
We do have the blizzard spell, and zap, so we have a few ways to kill some things to get some XP. It's just gonna depend on the right opportunity.
What we got? 34.
Alright, we're gonna sneak by these snakes and glide home to safety. At this point, we do have both a deadly and a heal. So we have the key components. We want to avoid equipping that deadly sword if we can, but in a pinch, we can use it.
Yep, again, as I described earlier, we do want our faster people to use the instant kill weapons, and Maxim is not faster than most of the things that we want him to attack. You can get items that boost your agility, some by just tiny bits and some by pretty hefty chunks. Both of those combinations aren't always what you want still.
We can use that Antares glitch on these little lizard guys, but you can't do as much damage as easily as you can with Antares. So might save the XP getting for some better strats. Looks like we're gonna try it. We do have zap.
I do.
Alright, good luck. Just 2 of them, we got this. Okay, that's some crucial XP.
Now you notice also now we have a radish. Mike described earlier that it's pretty useful to have a radish out. He is the slowest, but he is the strongest in terms of a tank pet that we have available. So we want to take advantage of his bulk to make sure that we have an extra damage sponge that can, you know, soak up a couple of extra hits, so that way we don't need to worry about doing anything else with them later on.
We also just found something we're going to feed that radish.
Yep, we do like our pets to grow, so we should actually take a moment here and give our pets some lunch. Our radish needs a little food, so we're going to treat him to a little treat here. Give him a couple of things that we're not going to be using too much, like a whip. Maybe feed him a little bit of wire.
In particular, this
we'll give him our guitars.
Berserk blade we just found. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a complicated feeding system in this game that allows you to build up your pets and evolve them to certain higher forms. The higher level your pet is, or the higher form your pet is, the more access it has to, well, neat things. The Berserk blade that we found is a sword that's pretty much horrible in all situations, so we're going to try and get rid of it as quickly as we can. Feeding it actually gives it a little bit of use.
Yeah, the Berserk blade is a horrifying weapon that ends many a run. Because if you auto-equip it, you can't take it off. And if you auto-equip it on Decker, you no longer can use the Decker blade on the Jelly. Plus, it's weaker on later floors. So many runners, the second they see that thing, they either drop it or feed it. And we're feeding Sully to 2, where he actually gets a deadly attack. What does it hit? 60%?
I think it's the same property as everything else, 80%. I could be wrong though. It's been a while since I've looked at that number. But yeah, we've built up our pet. He's a little garden gnome now. He's going to be helping us out a little bit more. You may notice that we had 2 deadly swords there, which is kind of strange because all of our other items seem stacked. For instance, the aqua whips that we had 3 of, those were just stacked right on top of each other. The reason we saw 2 deadly swords there is because of a translation error in the North American release of this game. There is actually a sword called the Lethal Sword, but for whatever reason this game has it translated as the Deadly Sword, and there is also the Deadly Sword, which is called itself the Deadly Sword. One of them is good, one of them is bad. They're both cursed, which means that you need a curse lifter to take it off. One of them has a deadly instant kill property, the other one does not, so it sort of lies to you. You can tell by looking at the item description exactly which one you're holding. So it's not like a guessing game where you just have to hope that you got the right one. You absolutely can't confirm it. Also, the item that you find, if you happen to pick one up at floor 20 or earlier, is guaranteed to be the quote-unquote good one. The one we just picked up is a mystery to me, so we can take a look at it later if we want and figure out whether it's a good one or not.
You might be wondering how you can tell if they both say Deadly Sword, which one's which. Well, the bad one... oh, wow, we're finding a lot of them. Bad Deadly Sword, when you read it, the one that's not a deadly that we want, reads as the power of the Deadly Sword turned into an actual sword. Good one is simply an ominous-looking sword when you read its description.
Now, when it says the power of a deadly sword turned into an actual sword, you may have remembered there were some swords just bumbling about without any real purpose. They are the deadly sword enemy, so that is what it's referring to, and they are kind of threatening because they have the ability to hit your entire party and they come in sets of 4, although they don't use that often, or that ability too often. Yeah, can we get the thing, I guess, changed? I don't know if the title still says that we're running Reject or not, or if we were running Reject or not. Maybe change the title to Rejected Reject or something. Hey, Camo, I had a really good warm-up run today, and unfortunately I must have burned all my luck, and therefore have nothing to show for it in this run.
And the warm-up run was 1 curse lifter away from world record. For a while.
Oh, we got a whole bunch of blue mimics here, huh?
Oh.
I see you guys there zooming.
That's not good. Let's just explore some more.
Come on.
Okay, we also, if we go down, we have to mess with some tentacles too, so.
Oh, the overlay. Oh, gotcha.
Okay, so what the Elieson did there was really brilliant. He ran up and left and drew those tentacles off the screen so that he could then go by and sneak by them. There's a fatal pick also, which is a wonderful item. We've been looking for that.
There are a handful of enemies.
In reject, we didn't want it, but we do now.
There are a handful of enemies that you can move off of the visible layout under a door, and they won't move. There are some enemies that if you do activate them or aggro them, they'll chase you regardless of where you are.
Yeah, Ancient Cave, any percent is good. Okay, we're still on the dreaded blue mimic floors, 29 through 31. We're about to get past them and leave them by forever.
Hopefully. With as much heck as we've had in this run so far, we are praying that we don't have anything else slow us down. So these Medusas here, they actually will aggro outside of the room to chase you down wherever you happen to be. Most of the other things, though, if they
Did
can't
you
see
see you had
you,
another Berserk Blade, by the way?
I fed it.
You did? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
We can't find the cubes today. Not in this 20% run, so we're using the third use of the Antares glitch. Ensure a back attack on these undead creatures.
So that was 4 levels per character. Just goes to show how far behind I was in terms of EXP, because some enemies like that normally would barely give you 1 level. It is unfortunate that I had to burn a zap for it, because, again, it is the most costly spell. But when you need to get the EXP to gain some levels and ensure that survivability, you do what you have to do, of course.
They are on core floors, however. 32 through 34, we can get the red cores you're all familiar with, but we can also find blue cores. They drop 11,000 XP, and that would be a huge boon right now.
It's almost poetic in its irony that the floors that we want to explore to find the cores on have so far given me the stairs right almost on top of me every time.
There's a saying in Ancient Cave with runners that quickest floors are always the core floors.
After we pass the core floors here, and this is the third of the 3 blue core floors that we could run into, the next thing that we're going to be fighting are crabs. And for the first time in our life, we will be hoping to get Cancer, and by that we mean the Cancer Rock, which is a drop that the crabs will give us at about 20% likelihood. That allows us to take advantage of actually a dual power, or a 2 times effectiveness attack move.
There they are now, the cute little guys. Okay, do we have the Fatal Pick equipped, or are you going to for this, or are you just going to bash them down?
I've got the Pounder Rod.
Ooh, yeah, just as good. For these guys, anyway. Okay, so we've talked so far about fractionals on the jelly. Things that, like the Deadly Rod Uncursed that does 1/8 of its HP, or the Decker Blade that does 50%. There's the Cancer Rock now. Wonderful. Cancer Rock falls in the category, as opposed to a fractional, what we call a finisher. Beginning of the fight, we want to do the fractional damage, which is a ton of damage in the first round. After that, we want to do massive damage, and those are our finishers. The spell Zap is a finisher for Artie. It does, depending on your level, 400 to 500 damage. Cancer Rock is a very important finisher because it allows you to attack twice. It uses 38% of your IP, so you can use it 2 times in a fight. And if you're very lucky, you can pair it with the Old Sword, which starts dropping in the early 50s. It uses 51% IP, so if we put our math hats on, 51%, 38%, we can use both a fractional of 1/6 the jelly HP, plus a double attack with that Cancer Rock, paired with the powerful weapon.
Now the Crabs Day appears from floor 35, 36, and 37. The unfortunate consequence to advancing in the cave means that you're always going to find more and more powerful enemies. The range of 37, 38, and 39 is a floor range that gives us assassins, or more accurately translated and pronounced assassins. They are extremely fast. We don't really have the means to outspeed them, and they're effectively capable of the first one-shot attack that we may have to deal with. Looks like we got some right here, actually. So we do need to be careful.
Fortunately, we have the spell Zap. So if we do have to encounter them, we can wipe them all out with one cast of Zap.
I found an engage ring in a blue chest.
Now we can get a discount in shops.
Yeah, the
problems though.
The emphasis about playing the Ancient Cave through the main game really is shown through the existence of the engage ring. If you do manage to find it and escape the cave with a Providence, then you can take it out with you, and for the remainder of the game, purchase things in all vendors for half cost. The item itself, thus, in the Ancient Cave here, has absolutely no use whatsoever.
Sadly, I've yet to find a shop in the Ancient Cave. I do hope to find one and use some of this gold we're finding, which otherwise we don't have a purpose for, but...
Well, the town that we start in does have
anyone that can even equip the engage ring.
Right, the engage ring is, as you would expect, a lady-only piece of equipment, which means Artie cannot use it, and neither can our pets, even if they were girls. So those assassins have a very small chance to drop something called a Misto Jewel. Misto Jewel is a 2% drop for an accessory that boosts our agility by a pretty hefty chunk. We would have loved to get that, but just the fact that we didn't have to fight too many of these guys to begin with is a reward in itself. We are effectively past the assassins now, and we're about to enter what is affectionately referred to by me as the actual cave, or the Ancient Cave. Where you could consider this the dungeon because of the layout and the music that you hear. The cave is from floors 41 to 60. Now, the layout of the... I'm sorry, from 41 onward. Get used to this music. We're going to be hearing a lot of it. This is the third area that we're going to be finding our cores. Oof. And this is also the part of the Ancient Cave where we'll be starting to find some very threatening enemies afterwards.
Yeah, it's 41 through 43 are green cores. Maybe the most important cores in the whole cave, because the threatening enemies that Elieson was speaking of are ninjas. And once you get to ninjas, you are in the teeth of the cave. They can they're faster than you most of the time, and they can use an attack called Knife Thrower that hits your whole party. 3 of those and you're out of commission. So we're gonna hope to avoid those, and if we do fight them, hopefully we have the benefit of having the green core levels first. Also, you saw us find Thunder. That's another jelly spell. We now have the 2 most powerful attack spells for the jelly. We have Zap for Artie, and we have Thunder for Maxim. the ninjas are on floors 44 through 46. So 41 through 43 is our reprieve, and then 43 through 46 is the gauntlet. And look at that, quick stairs.
And ideally you'll find a couple of these green cores, and then you'll have some EXP to tackle right into the ninjas, which appear immediately after the green cores. You don't get much of a break. Conveniently though, after you fight ninjas, and you get past floor 46, you actually have quite a little bit of break before your next very, very threatening opponents start to appear. There are a few things along the way that we're going to want to stop and maybe poke if we can conveniently do anything to them. With my limited resources for MP recovery, I may not take too much time spending trying to beat up extra things and farming a couple extra drops. But if we do find an extra item, like a miracle or two, then I may actually take advantage of that. By that, I'm referring to Bryn's Lizards, which drop the accessory that gives you the highest agility boost that the game has to offer.
Ooh, rally. Great find, Ellie. And cores.
So we got a green core.
Green core has stayed.
Green cores are worth as much as 3 blue cores, and blue cores are worth as much as 5 red cores, so you can see the value here in the EXP. For context, at this stage of the game, the enemy that drops the highest amount of EXP only drops 10% of what this does, and they're a very threatening enemy type. They're Hydras. So we're very happy to have that.
Floor, we're level 20, which is about the minimum level you want to be on floor 44. So we're very glad we got those cores, because we are at ninjas now. We're going to hope to avoid them. And there's one now. He's going to manipulate this ninja to get a 50% chance to get a first strike, which is what Elieson did by moving up out of that room, moving right to bring the ninja sideways, and now moving down into him. You gonna use your fatal pick, or are you gonna roll without it?
Let's see what I have here. I think I'm gonna stick the pick on, actually.
Now, we can't take that fatal pick off now, but it's gonna give Artie the chance to one-shot these ninjas, which he just did. And we're gonna survive now because of it.
These guys are scary because, as Mike said, they outspeed you with pretty high reliance. They actually get to go 2 times per turn with their standard attacks, or they have an attack called Guillotine, which is a one-shot. Or, worst of all, they have an ability called Knife Thrower, which is an incredibly powerful attack for this portion of the game that hits your entire party. Notoriously, if you have a reject run, your entire party can very easily get killed by 2 Knife Throwers, and it can just be a complete game over just from one round of those. There is no real way to assure a back attack on them, so you typically just have to take your chances. Do what you can to strategically give yourself a chance at an advantage, and if you can get that, then take it from there.
We are in the last ninja floor now, too. We were fortunate to have a very quick 45. We can breathe a temporary sigh of relief once we're past 46, if we get past it. More ninjas. Open with a knife thrower. That's the tough. That's not what you want, but let's see if Artie can carry the day here. Everyone's still alive.
Yep, remember
Deadly
this is it's an 80% chance of being a one-shot. Unfortunately, our pet does have the ability to help as well, but if that were a group of 3, things would have gone way worse.
Now, you saw those red plants scurry to a point and stop. They were moving to where the ninja was, and once the ninja died, that was their final destination. They will never move again. We are past ninjas and moving on down. And
so
good
at this point, we've got a few
on the Iron Gorm to avoid a conflict.
We have a few floors now where we just don't really need to worry about combat. I'm going to open a couple chests here and there just to hopefully grab myself a extra MP recovery if I can get myself a hand on it. I'm not too concerned about the contents in these floors, though. The enemy composition coming up is about to become very important. Oops. The enemies that appear in pretty much the entirety of the 50s, except for the very middle of the 50s, they drop something like that cancer rock, only it's better because it has more power to it, and it also gives you agility, which means that your deadly user can go even faster. So we're going to try to grab one of those. They give us a little bit more reliance, at least to get a little bit further. And with more agility, it means we can just get through these battles even faster.
This final shadow attack we're seeing is an instant death attack. Fortunately for us, it only has a 25% chance to hit a single target. When cast on multiple targets, even less than that. Manipulating the iron gorms out of the way and down to safety. As Ellie was saying, there's not a whole lot we're hoping to get from opens right now. We have a deadly, the rally spell, and we have a cancer rock. Once we get to floor 60, the entirety of what can drop in the cave is open to us, with the Myth Blade, which is a 25% IP weapon against the jelly. And we're kind of hoping for that synergy of possible items between the Decker Blade, which is a 50% to the jelly IP weapon, the Myth Blade, which is equipable by Maxim, Guy, or Decker, 25% to the jelly IP. An old sword, which is 1/6%, also equipable by Decker, Guy, or Maxim, and can be paired with the Cancer Rock. And also Lizard Blow, which is a good finisher that any character can equip. All those things will be available to us once we get to floor 60.
Additionally, once we get to floor 60, it's a bit of a hustle because there are very few enemies that we want to fight by that point. There's a couple of enemies that have a good series of drops, but we don't always have to fight them. Any percent runs typically just don't even do that.
That's good movement, by the way, getting past all of those drunken sailors.
So our next stop is floor 53 for the Hydras, or as the game translated them as, the Hydoras. We're about to find some pretty scary teleporters too. As you saw, that teleporter came from off screen and landed sort of right in front of our face. There's not a whole lot you can do about those, unless you very carefully pad out your steps to only walk 3 or 4 tiles at a time.
I call this stutter stepping.
Now, these guys are an introduction to the Fiend sprite. They're large, they're in charge, and they deal a lot of damage. They go twice. They're manageable. They have a weakness, but they have enough HP that you can sort of pound your way through them. You don't need a lot to be faster than them. There was an Archfiend, an upgraded version of them later on.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. There's an upgraded version of them that last in the cave for dozens of floors, called Archfiends. They can come in pairs, and they are notorious for ending runs just because of how obscenely powerful they are, how ridiculously high their MP and HP are, how they can go several times and cast instant kill attacks, or just deal a ton of damage to your party through magic. And it's pretty much one of the main reasons...
I saw a question.
Oh, a question?
Go ahead.
Oh, no. Feel free.
I was going to answer someone's question once you're done explaining the mechanic. There's a finisher for Maxim, by the way.
Oh, a question. Why don't we get those chests? At this point, we're in it for speed. I want to try and get as far into the cave as I can, given the allotment of time that we have remaining for the challenge. And in order to do that, I need to avoid...
additionally, we're looking to get that perfect synergy of possible items that can drop for us. We have the main items that we want to find to survive to floor 60 now. So we can comfortably run there, other than maybe fighting a Hedora or two, till we start opening a bit more to get the final items we need to defeat the jelly. They killed Artie, so once he's down, we are taking off, bringing him back, and trying again. You're seeing how handy that rally spell comes in now.
So as a reminder, if you're unfamiliar with the game, this is the Ancient Cave, which is Lufia 2's version of a roguelike randomizer. It's a 100 floor dungeon. I mean, technically it's only 98 floors, really. But the fun side of this is that every time you go through it, the floors are procedurally generated, so you never quite get the same experience twice. The jelly is on the final floor, and then there is an introductory floor that just kind of says, hey, you know, this is where you are. So even though those count as the floors that you need to navigate through, they're not really anything worth their weight in sweat or anything.
We just found a fry sword again, but now we can use it, and that is especially good because we have a cancer rock. That means a lot of our characters are ready to go for the final fight in the jelly. We have Guy ready with a fry sword, which he can pair with a cancer rock. We have Artie with Zap, and we have Maxim with the Red Saber and Thunder. If we can grab one Decker Blade, we are set up with a kill.
And the neat thing about the Fry Sword is it is one of the most powerful weapons that we have access to, not only in general, but in terms of just being able to deal with any threat. Very few enemies are resistant to the Holy Element, and we do want to take advantage of the fact that we have something that can smash them.
We're going to see the Elieson beat up on these multi-headed lizard people here. He's hoping for a Hedora rock drop, which has a 3 times attack and also increases your agility and attack power.
Ideally, you don't need one of them.
Got to see the power of Sully.
Yeah, Sully doesn't normally do his little trick there. It's nice that he did, though. Ideally, we wouldn't need to hunt a Hedora rock. In a true any percent, we'll just grab a chest that gives us the ability to do what we need from the weapon itself. But it's a great supplement to these more powerful weapons which don't have any modifiers or multipliers built into them. And for context, the blue chest weaponry that you have access to, pretty much all of them are going to be more powerful than almost anything else you can find in the cave. There are a couple of exceptions, but this pretty much, if you find something, then it's going to be better than almost anything else you'll get, and you'll definitely want to couple it with something. We've got the Cancer Rock, but we could be saving that for a pinch on something else. And then that would free up the Hedora Rock.
We're also on floor 58, so we're hoping for no cores, correct, Ellie?
Yes, this is the final floor group that cores will appear on, and we absolutely do want to take advantage of the fact that they exist by taking a little bit of a peek. They don't give quite as much as the other cores do in terms of value jump. For instance, no cores give as much experience as a green core and 2 blue cores. So the jump is only slight, whereas we had 5 times the experience in terms of a jump. Now we only have like 1.5 times or so.
These sprites for the Hedoras, they move every 3 steps. And on the 3rd step, we're hoping they'll move away from us so that we can take 2 steps towards them and get a back attack. Fortunately, Artie missed once, but we survived in a sense because he's faster than them. He got another shot.
Yes, Infamous in chat, you are correct. There is another octopus-type enemy that appears in the 70s and 80s range called an Orky. They can attack 8 times, and the weapon is the Gades Blade, and that has an attack called Octo Strike, which allows you to do
Try it,
multiple
Falcon.
hits.
This is my last attempt to do a core pun.
So those are the 4 types of cores that this game has to offer. Cores can actually be found in the overworld of the game as well, which is kind of neat. They appear at an incredibly low chance, and they have the same runaway odds that you see having to deal with them here. So you're probably not going to actually get any value out of them unless you happen to be very lucky or doing some sort of RNG manipulated run.
And
That said, it looks like we got one.
So we were already high enough level to beat the jelly, but this gives us a little bit of buffer. From 27 to around level 30, I would say. B29.
And also remember that we have to make it there. The enemies that are coming up are pretty threatening, and we want to outspeed them. It's getting to the point now where the enemies are so large that less than 4 can fit on a screen, more often than not.
Our IP situation is looking really good. Basically, we have all the IP now, we just need a Decker Blade, and if we find that one item, we can just run straight to the jelly. Assuming we don't die by all the gauntlet that starts facing us at 473. You're seeing the power of the Fry Sword there, hitting a Arc Elemental creature for 700 damage without a crit.
For context of HP, the enemies in this cave that have the highest amount of health are the dragons that appear at the very end, and they've got about 2700 HP. The enemies that we're fighting around here have a range sort of between 6 and 700. That black dragon had about 1200, which is way higher than most of the other enemies around this time. So we do need to be a little careful around them. Ah, yes, the magic
The
bikini.
Orkies that were earlier mentioned have be 2800 hit points, so very deadly. It's a good thing we have a Fatal Pick equipped. There's an apron. If you do decide to subscribe to the Elieson, you can have the wonderful apron emote. There it is now. Isn't he a cute little guy?
Ah, yes, now our Gorgon rock. Unfortunately, there is a Gorgon rock and then a Gorgon rock. The Gorgon rock that you find in the chest is not all that valuable. It gives a little bit of bulk. It has a decent IP attack that can hit a variety of enemies. So we're going to stick it on for some defense at the very least. But it's not going to do anything else that's special for us. Yes, and there also are a handful of equipment. We can't find them yet, but they include a chop board, a fry pan, which I think we actually may have found. We can also find a pot, and the apron, of course.
Now, the Gore Gun Rock is an item that drops from Gorgons here in a few floors. You can start getting them. They do 1/8 of the jelly HP, which is pretty. Would be a good option right now for Artie. Gorgan Rock does, I believe, a combo attack, which does a couple hundred hit points, as opposed to the 1300 damage. Some of us, I'm not going to name any names, have used the Gorgan Rock on the jelly, hoping it would do 1300 damage and only doing 300 damage. Only make that mistake once, fortunately.
We're getting to the point where enemies, even with our high level, are going to be outspeeding us pretty reliably. So we need to try to very carefully pick and choose our fights. There's also teleporters in this particular group of 4 floors that are extremely threatening. That no matter what, I don't think you can amass enough agility to outspeed them. They are teleporters called leeches, which are what you'd expect a lich to be. We can sort of manipulate how they teleport.
There are some now.
But we still have to be careful around them. Of course.
That's the risk of equipping the fatal pick is you find a deadly rod later, you lose out. We now need 2 curse lifters. Get the IP from the deadly rod against the jelly. We would need uncurse the fatal pick, equip the deadly rod, and then uncurse it. And then we'd have a good item on the jelly for Artie. These little teleporting guys are leeches. If they hit you from behind, your run is over. These friendly little golden guys you saw on the last floor spinning in circles. If you fight them and they golden mist you twice, your run is over.
Yeah, you don't want to get peed on by those
It's kind of the
statues.
theme of anything you fight from here on out.
These pink dragons aren't super threatening, but they are time-consuming and a little difficult to recover from. You can time it, you can get behind him when he gives us a small gap of movement.
They're another monster type that move on every 3 steps. So we wait till they turn their back to us, stay 2 steps away, then take our 2 steps, 1, 2, and get our back attack. Very important movement strat, especially as we get to dragons and orkies.
Nice Thundo Jewel drop, that's a
Did
bit
they
of
just
power.
drop? No jewel.
He did.
That'll be an ATP boost.
And a bit of defense.
Probably on Maxim for the jelly to go with his red saber, which does a 3 times attack on the jelly.
Exactly. Now this is a nasty little
Yeah, I like
hallway.
Ellie style. I jump. Oh, look at this. Ugh. 3 leeches. The healing tile. That's not going to save us if they kill us.
Well, no, the
Elieson
healing tile is useful
expertly
because it actually
moved around
blocks enemy movement. Unless an enemy is already on top of it when it loads in, it cannot move through that heal tile, which is a nice little perk of itself.
I'm going to try to get a Gorgon Rock now for Artie, so we can get that aforementioned 1/8 damage to the jelly in the first round. Not drop that time. What is it, a 20% chance drop?
I believe it's at 20%.
15 or 20, I forget which. Pretty low.
15%, sorry about that. So if you saw that Fiend sprite earlier, you may remember a little bit about it. Those were the ones that killed Artie a little while ago. They cast Fireball and they cast Thunderbolt on him. We're finding his bigger, badder, scarier brother here in the Archfiend. and we want to stay as far away from them as possible. If you aggro them, they will follow you, not through a room, but if you walk around into a different room, it's like they have the ability to sense where you are, and they'll meet you at the doorway of whatever other room you're trying to walk through.
They're the most terrifying thing in the cave, other than maybe blue mimics. But they look scary, they're not cute, so I go with Archfiends as scariest.
And the thing about them too is that you really don't have the means to kill them under normal battle circumstances. You'll either have to cast a destroy magic spell or use a deadly to kill them, because they have such a high amount of HP that beating them down just doesn't really work. They resist attacks from a standard neutral element, and they have I think 1800 HP, so it's just a lot of health that you need to knock down in order to get through them. So we're picking up our pace a bit here. We're to the point now where we just don't want to fight things anymore, other than the very, very select few types of enemies. The Gorgons will appear a little bit here and there, and we're going to poke them just to try to get their drop. Other than that, there's nothing else that we really want to fight at this point.
Yeah, we even have all of our IP, so we're in good shape, other than we do need a Decker Blade in order to do enough damage to naturally kill the jelly.
Already does
If we
need
get
a
to the
little
jelly,
bit
you're
more.
going to see a victory one way or the other. We have ways.
Yep, and I know we are running a little bit behind schedule at this point, but I do think that as long as I don't get slammed with any type of hardcore wall, I can make it there within the next 10 to 12 minutes and give you guys a show. So I'm going to do my best to finish this up. If Artie gets punched one more time, then we'll be set for everybody's IP gauges as well, and they can all use their special attacks to pretty much no consequence. Now, Sully pulling his weight there. That Perish Punch is something that he and one other Capsule Monster have in terms of special ability that can instant kill. The other one is Darby, which is the mushroom that I had started off with back during my reject runs. His third form has that, but it casts a long, time-consuming to watch spell. He does it at a much higher frequency, which is great, but it does suck up a lot of time, which is bad in the context of a speedrun. So typically you don't end up using that unless you're trying to, well, just make it there. And I'd highly recommend anybody that's new to the Ancient Cave wanting to give it a try and just have a little fun. Bring Darby on your first go. His first form has Trance Maker, which confuses enemies. His second form has just a couple of regular attacks, which aren't that stellar. But his third form has that instant kill, which you really don't want to give up.
What do you think's in that blue chest, Elieson?
I think there's going to be an earring in that blue chest, Mike.
That's very pessimistic. Let's go with the Gady's Blade, huh?
I think Gady's Blade is being a little too
Gady's Blade,
optimistic.
the most powerful finisher in the game, could be in that blue chest. Ice Hairband.
If I was still doing...
Would have been good in our reject run.
Yeah, absolutely.
But unfortunately, we don't have anyone with us who can equip it now.
Yep, that is unfortunately a lady-only piece of equipment. It's nice. It's a nice ring, or a nice hairband, as you saw. But it doesn't really do a whole lot.
It's not so far-fetched to guess a Gady's Blade there, as one time the Elieson was running a marathon, and he found 3 Gady's Blades in a reject run marathon. Which is amazing for finding Gady's Blades. However, unfortunately, you guessed it, you cannot use a Gady's Blade in reject.
Yep.
Just found Trick. That's crucial.
Trick is that attack power
Anchor
boosting
Blade
spell.
will probably give it a 100% chance kill
The
now.
Gady's Blade is useful because it is the only weapon that has the ability to strike an enemy with more than 3 times attack power. Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Now it has
What floor is this?
81.
Okay, good. 81 is not a bad Archfiend sprite floor. So, you see the Archfiend sprite over there. It can't beat 2 Archfiends or Archfiend Leech, given that we're on floor 81 right now.
And I see Dr. Kosak talking in chat about this being a solid RPG. In my opinion, this is one of the better RPGs that the Super Nintendo has to offer. The plot isn't extremely groundbreaking. I mean, it's fairly traditional, but there are some plot twists and turns. The characters in it are likable, and it's really a good game. You can spend maybe 14 or so hours playing through it at a pretty casual pace, and you'll reach this part of the game after just a little while of playthrough, maybe 5 or 6 hours. You'll find that you can get the blue chests and bring them through and make the rest of the game that much more of a breeze, and it's just kind of nice. Now, Lufia 2 is a sequel. It's a sequel to, in my opinion, pretty dated game, I think, for lack of better terms.
It's a prequel.
This is the prequel.
You basically play the end of this game in the first fight, if I remember right, the first game. But don't let that fool you. There's the Gorgon rock drop. Don't let that fool you. It's still pretty gripping at the end. No spoilers. Okay, we got a Gorgon rock. So now Artie is completely ready. I is completely ready. And Maxim is completely ready for the jelly. We just need that elusive Decker Blade, and we are golden.
Now we've got 14 floors worth of exploration left. Floor 80 or 98 is the final floor that you can open chests on. We're getting to the point where the only enemies that we're going to see pretty soon are dragons and dark summoners, which are little green teleporters that teleport when you're close to them only, but not when you're far away from them, like those blue ones did. We're gonna have to be a little bit careful, or a little bit more careful in how we drag enemies around.
Very nice. That was expertly done.
There we go.
These guys aren't the most dangerous people in the cave, these genies, but they do have a 24% chance of using an AoE on you, and a few of those in a row, as some people have found out in Fatal Blowout, our annual tournament, can wipe you. Ooh, we got 2 of them in a row. That's bad luck.
You can see how much damage that
though,
did.
And he survived. So having them use that twice in a row is only a 6% chance, but cave can be punishing. No, you don't have to. You don't have to beat it twice to access the cave. You need to beat it twice to access gift mode, which allows you to pick any combination of character or capsule monster. On your first playthrough, you can go to the ancient cave about halfway through the game, but you're limited to whatever party and capsule monster you have through the regular game. And the Elieson just showed off some swag strat right there. These chariots move twice and then stall. So he let it move once and stepped on its second movement, ensuring that on the next move it stays still and he doesn't have to encounter these dreaded archfiends twice. Boom, there it is.
So you can see how we're getting to the point now where things just start to outright shred
now.
us. If we were in a reject run, you can imagine how any one of those combat scenarios that we were just in would pretty much be a run end, even if we played everything optimally. The one perk to a reject run is that we have more options to instantly kill enemies, but the unfortunate part of it in reject is that, well, in this is that we don't. We have only 2 options for deadly as opposed to 3. We do have more options to cast destroy, but again, this team has a lot more bulk, so that way we can take a lot more hit and therefore survive the attacks. So if we get stuck in a situation where we just can't really surprise attack something, or we can't run away quickly, then those are the times that we're hosed.
We are getting near to the base of the cave. We're on floor 88, which means we have survived what we call the gauntlet, and have honestly relatively easier floors. Now, things can still absolutely obliterate us, but for the most part, we have enemies that we can maneuver, like these teleporters. Elieson is getting out of the way, moving to the base of the room, now checking these dragon fights to see if they're manageable, which they are. He has the option of IP farming now or getting a few safety levels. We'll see what he does. Okay, he's just gonna beat them and progress through the cave because this room is a bit dangerous. A teleporter and a dragon crowding your stairs. More copper dragons, that's good. There are 3 dragon types we can face right now. We can face copper, silver, or gold dragons. Copper dragons are preferable as they only attack 1 time. Here's their Cinder Blast attack. That's going to fill up our IP gauge. It's going to look scary, but we kind of want it because we need all that IP filled. Silver dragons attack 2 times. Let's see how Ellie plays this actually, because 1 hit will kill him, but they are weak to status ailments. He's looking for a status ball. There were none, so he's just smoking out of here. The smoke ball lets you auto escape, and Artie is quicker. So we're going to heal up and probably finish up the IP farm, I believe. We'll see how he plays it. Now, the silver dragons attack 2 times, and can use even more powerful attack all than that Cinder Blast we just saw. Gold dragons, you might have guessed, attack 3 times. Oh, Sully. Massacring the dragon. And their Stardust Blow is incredibly powerful, plus they can zap, which is the most powerful spell on everybody. If we see gold dragons, we're probably running unless we're really forced to deal with them.
So we really are in the home stretch here. 8 floors left to go. I'm probably not going to do too much more to IP grind out at this point. I think I have a plan on how I can get us to win at the ancient
secret strats
boss here.
If we find a Decker Blade, we'll probably IP farm. Otherwise, we're just gonna finish this up for you guys. It's been a great chat. We started out with 5,000 people, and the hype of the ancient cave has gotten us up to almost 12,000 viewers.
Good lordy. Now also bear in mind we spent a good chunk of this run dead. So what was it, the first about 45 minutes or so into this, we finally turned everything around. We're about an hour and 15 in. You see how much comfort we've been able to use to get through this with an optimal party. You can have this much good fortune with a suboptimal party like the reject party, but in a marathon setting, you just have so much less room for mistake. So we're trying to capitalize on the fact that, we've, 1, made it this far with a team that can handle it, and 2, that there's a lot we can take advantage of. So we're looking for the stairs. You only got a few left. We may be able to secure a couple kills. Gold dragons like this, though, are not something that we ever want to mess with. Because they can go 3 times per turn, they outspeed pretty much everybody with the exception of maybe Artie, depending on his setup, and have the chance to either cast Zap or Stardust Blow, which just shred your team, or Trick to buff up their power before they shred you. We just stay away from them.
If we base check...
Oh yeah. If you walk into the stairs facing upwards and you happen to just bump straight into a set of double gold dragons, even because you've played it safely, you have a very tiny chance to survive. You pretty much have to hope that they only spend their time powering up instead of actually attacking you, and it's 6 turns of them that you're praying for them to just leave you alone. So when we get to the final floor of this ancient cave, assuming that nothing else goes wrong here, we're going to see something pretty interesting. Because of the way that this game was created, there are different versions, of course. There's the Japanese version, there's the PAL version, or the European version. and there is the North American version, of which I'm playing on right now. The North American version has a final floor that looks a little bit different compared to the final floors in the other versions of this game, and it's kind of hard to describe. I would like to ask anyone if you happen to be an architect or an engineer, if you could share your opinions on what you think of the structure of the final floor when we get there. We've only got a couple more floors to go, so fortunately we should be there within the next couple of minutes here.
And mad shout-outs to Elieson for getting this far this fast, especially after how the reject started. This is very impressive. There's the last stairs.
Alright, so we're here
We
at the
are
basement,
there.
the final floor. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to be a little creative with our kill here. Let's see.
So we never found the vaunted Decker blade. So we have no way of doing 9,980 hit points to the jelly. However, there is a way to achieve total victory, and we're going to show you. The jelly's telling us how he controls everything in the cave. We're confused because he's just a jelly, but he says, "Fools, we control everything inside this cave." He's the last enemy we meet here, but he cannot kill us. The one thing in the cave that cannot kill you is this guy. However, he's very hard to kill. You have 3 rounds to beat him. And do 9,980 damage, which we can't do. However,
Kejin, I appreciate your opinion here. Okay guys, feel free to celebrate victory because we're about to impress the jelly and earn his trust as a win. So here we go. Oh wait, total defeat. Shoot, Mike. Oh wait a minute.
what
No.
power and ability! I have to admit, you're the world's best warrior. I'm honored to have been able to fight with one as brilliant as you. Before I go, let me give you this. So, he can't beat you because he can't do damage. Therefore, the game assumes once you exit the fight and you're dead, that you've won. Therefore, the jelly rewards you with the key of the ancient cave, just as if you were to do the 9,980 damage. We call this the suicide glitch. GG. Well done, Elieson.
Yep, so because we killed ourselves before the flag would trigger to mark us as being booted from the cave, the flag instead triggers to check and see if the jelly is still alive or if the battle has ended. And because the battle ends, that interrupts the check that boots you out of the cave and you're considered a winner. So we've done it. We've rejected rejects twice, and we can now celebrate with the spoils of the ancient cave. There are 3 chests in the back room, a dragon ring, a brilliant helm, and a light jewel, which you can take in on future runs one time or enjoy for the remainder of the game. And as customary, once you complete and defeat the boss of the ancient cave, we get to celebrate our spoils by depositing a jelly right here in the basement. So, yes, we absolutely defeated the final boss. That's why this is here, because we defeated it, and for no other reason.
We would have needed a Decker blade to do enough damage to defeat it the intended way. But, you can always win, even without that.
So, I will say, unfortunately, yep, I didn't have the stuff I needed, but I do hope to be able to do that for you guys again on Wednesday. of this week at 2 p.m. Eastern, I believe, there is going to be a race between myself and That's Fair Zach, an any percent race, where we hope to give you 2 hours of true magnificence in a situation in which both of us, who I'd like to think are both seasoned veterans, are going to be able to tackle this cave and give you a show to enjoy. That's Fair Zach has a record in the sub 50-minute time frame, so he's definitely a talented person, and he's streamed this cave thousands of times, so he's going to be a fantastic runner, and he's a great friend of mine, so I absolutely think that he'll be giving you a great show. I definitely suggest checking out that race when you get the chance, and sticking around for everything else that SpeedGaming here has to offer.
Zach has the second fastest any percent time, and Elieson here has created the Jelly Calculator, which is a piece of Excel art. I encourage you to check it out, and thank you everyone for watching this brilliant run, I'd say, and have a great night.
This is Elieson and Mike signing off. Thank you again, everyone.